You're watching NewsX. My name is Vineet Malhotra. A committee led by former President Ram Nath Kovind submitted a report on the government's One Nation, One Election push, which proposes simultaneous Lok Sabha and Assembly polls. The panel set up in September has since studied best practices from other countries, consulted 39 political parties, economists and other election commissions of India. It said today it backs the idea but calls for a legally sustainable mechanism that can break and realign existing electoral cycles, not without an amendment to the constitution, and that amendment being ratified by the governments of all states and union territories, as well as possibly major political parties. Legal experts have warned that failure to do so by amending 5 articles will leave the proposal open to attack on charges of violating India's federal structure. These are Article 83, Article 85 of the Lok Sabha by the President, and Article 172, which is of course the duration of state legislature, and Article 174, dissolution of state legislatures, as well as Article 356, imposition of the President's rule. These are key because one of the big challenges is what to do if a state or even the central government fails a no confidence motion or is otherwise dissolved before its term ends. To order all other states to hold fresh elections is impossible. As we hit into this discussion today, we are going to do a deep dive in this particular report as we start from the recommendations. Recommendation 1, the government must develop a legally tenable mechanism to restore cycle of simultaneous elections. Recommendation 2, simultaneous elections to House of the People and state assemblies to be held first. Recommendation 3 is elections to municipalities and panchayats to be held 100 days within the general elections. Recommendation 4, the first sitting of the House of the People should be issued after a general election. Recommendation 5 is tenure of all state assemblies should be up to the subsequent general elections. Number 6, constitution implementation on group to look into execution of the recommendations as well. Number 7, amendment in Article 325 for enabling single electoral roll and single voter ID card. In event of a hung house or no confidence, fresh elections may be held to constitute the new house. Further, the EC may draw a plan and estimate in advance for procurement of EVMs, VVPATs and security deployment as well. Some of the recommendations are extremely specific in nature. At this point in time, we are joined by a special guest, Mr. Vikas Singh, former ASG, is with us on the broadcast. Mr. Singh, appreciate you taking out the time, sir, and speaking with us. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Right. So first up, your impression, your personal and professional impression of One Nation, One poll. Is it tenable? Is it plausible? Is it possible in a country which is, bound by layers of complexities when it comes to the constitution as well as state-wise constitutions as well?
So, you will recall the first 4 elections in the country were held as One Nation, One poll. 52, 57, 62 and 67. Till then, there was no, dissolution of any of the assemblies of the Lok Sabha prior to the term. It's only in 69 and then 70 that assemblies and parliament got, dissolved prior to finishing their term, that this problem has arisen. Probably our constitution makers did not realize that there could be an issue of One Nation, One poll not happening. So this was not probably discussed in the debates of the Constituent Assembly. According to me, this is something which is desirable. It's a very positive suggestion, and it is doable also. It is doable by amending some articles of the Constitution, which will have to be, of course, ratified by 2/3 majority. And basically, according to me, apart from the removing the clause for dissolution of an assembly prior to the 5-year term, they should also amend the anti-defection law. And if if an alliance contests an election as an alliance, then the anti-defection law should apply on the alliance, so that you don't get votes of a party and then when the time to form the government comes, you form the government with somebody who has voted clearly, who was been an anti-party at the time of voting, and the people have not voted for that alliance. So I think some drastic changes will have to be made. Even for the business in parliament and assemblies, there should be a system where if you want to bring a no confidence motion, you should also have to bring a confidence motion simultaneously, so that there is no dissolution possible. It is only if you are able to muster the strength to make a government that a no confidence motion will lie. So some of these changes will have to be done. According to me, because they don't have the majority in the Rajya Sabha, and they will not, I mean, they have the majority, but not the two-third majority in the Rajya Sabha. I think this is an opportune time to develop consensus on this, because it's not as if any political party is going to gain or any political party is going to lose. Because if you look at the various states, in some states, BJP will also have to be, give up the power before the term is ending. So it's not as if only the opposition parties are to be affected. We have to look at the larger picture, look at the national interest, and then, if we are able to generate that kind of consensus, I think it is definitely doable. And it is a welcome thing which should be, encouraged in every which way, because it will cut down the expenditure of election. It will also not bring in the election code of conduct every now and then, because elections happening every now and then. So there are so many benefits in this proposal that I think it needs to be given a genuine, attempt to bring in after the new parliament comes in May 2024.
Mr. Singh, you highlighted the benefits of having this particular formula. Obviously, it's going to be lighter on the exchequer's pocket. There's going to be less logistical weight on the government to carry these out. But the fact of the matter is that a lot of political parties have been against this, citing that, when it comes to the constitution, this stands in violation at certain levels. How is the government supposed to bring all these parties to one table and implement this? This is a Himalayan task.
So actually, these opposition parties, unfortunately, the attitude in parliament is all the time adversarial. And the only time I remember when they all combined to pass a law was the NGSC, because they were really, upset with the collegium system. So when they had to pass the NGSC, they all combined together and, passed that law. So I think that same kind of consensus will have to be developed. And I don't think it's a very big task. And there are several smaller parties which BJP can definitely take the help of to get a two-third majority in the Rajya Sabha. And if that will of course be required. And it is actually to be appreciated that it is not for any particular political party's benefit. Because if you at any point of time analyze, there will be several BJP governments as well as opposition governments in the states which may ultimately have a curtailed tenure. So if you have to have that at some point of time, you have to realize that basically there is something called a national interest. And when you make a government of this kind, which has to last a full term, there could be a system where, the coalition, if you are having a difficulty in deciding who should be the chief minister, which is invariably the problem in a coalition, then the chief minister can also be decided by a democratic vote. So whoever wants to be a chief minister can be decided by a secret ballot by the MLAs who are supporting that particular government. And whoever gets the largest number of votes becomes the chief minister. And also, you can also have a system where if there are, supposing parties which are not at item as far as the governance is concerned, you can always have a system of consensus like we have in the Supreme Court Bar Association. There, it's a 21-member body. Whenever there is a contentious issue, we discuss it. Each one of the 21 members are elected directly by the electorate. So we develop consensus on all things, and we carry our work accordingly. So why not in governance in the states or in the center, if a situation of this kind were to arise? So this is something which has to be discussed and propagated, and I think it can be convinced to make it pass through.
Mr. Singh, I appreciate you taking out the time and speaking to us and giving us your expert and professional opinion on this important development that has come about this morning. Ashwini Dubey, lawyer, Supreme Court, is with us on the broadcast. Mr. Yogendra Kapoor, economist, also joins us on the show. Mr. K.C. Kaushik, former ASG, with us on the program as well. Ashwini, I'll begin with you. First up, this is a very prudent exercise. If it is implemented, it is layered with complications. And of course, right down to the assembly elections, to the regional parties who often complain that, their agendas might get eclipsed because of a larger area which is going to be dominated by the Lok Sabha and then the assembly elections. How do, in fact, layer by layer, take care of these problems and actually execute this? Because this is not only about saving money, this is also about welfare schemes, which remain pending because some code of conduct is pending in some state, and it also affects the government, to decentralize things the way that they want to.
Vinit bhai, thank you for having me here. That's why the building consensus among all political parties, and it says on the need and feasibility of simultaneous election is one of the foremost requirement. And this could be done through dialogue, consultation and deliberation among various stakeholders. And also that why it is required in order to have the country looking into the progress of the country, also to save the infrastructure, money, reduce cost of election, and also to take a policy decision which will ultimately benefit the public at large. Because if we see, yes, I do agree that the states have their regional parties have their own agenda. Regional parties are not concentrating on the national agendas. They have their regional agendas. But building consensus is one of the things. And the second, in order to have the focused government, that why it is required, because the focus, if there will be one nation, one election, it will not only reduce the cost, but also there will be a focused government which will work ultimately for the benefit of the public. Then continuity in policy decisions. Then why? Because the model code of conduct is implemented throughout the year. Vinit bhai, you see one to the other election. If we see the first Lok Sabha elections, model code of conduct is election. When the Lok Sabha election is over, then some states have their elections. Then again, model code of conduct is implemented. Thereafter, what will happen to the ongoing projects, the projects which are pending, and the new foundation which for new projects? All those things mingle with one thing, and so far as the development is concerned, that delayed. So in order to have the development, in order to have one policy, in order to strengthen the country, it is required. It is not first time. See, Vinit bhai, state assembly and Lok Sabha elections used to have in 1951 to 1952. Then just after 2 years after gaining independence and up until 1967, it was the standard. But later to some certain issues, it happened that the simultaneous election, because of the imposition of Article 356 by the then ruling party, that dissolved, and the state and Lok Sabha elections started in phases. Now, but certain amendments which are required for simultaneous election, as Vikas Singh sir said, that Article 83 of the Constitution is to be amended. The duration of House of Parliament, what we require is the fix of time and tenure of the House of Parliament. Then Article 85 of the Constitution is required to be amended. It says the sessions of Parliament, prorogation of and dissolution. There must be guidelines for dissolution. Then Article 170 to 174, and by this way, one nation, one election, by bringing an amendment, can be implemented in country, which will reduce the cost of the election, which will also strengthen the policies, and also there will be development, and it will also end the horse trading, by which we are seeing the freebies and improved state finances. Freebies is also one of the issues. We see the exchequer's money is being invested to bribe the people, either in the form of giving electricity subsidy, either in the form of giving water subsidy, free water, free electricity, free food, free scooty. This will also end. So by bringing one nation, one election, having consensus with the regional parties, I think it is one of the noble idea which will definitely benefit the public at large. Yes, Vinit bhai.
Great points there. And Yogendra Kapoor, let's not sideline the economic benefits of having this machinery work in a time frame which wraps up this procedure quickly and does not spread across months and years of polling, and also engaging a logistical machinery which could be doing something else.
Right, Vinit. I would like to say that if one does a comparative analysis of the points which favor one nation, one poll vis-a-vis the challenges or the points which are against one nation, one poll, I would say that the points in favor, they outweigh the points that are against. I'll primarily focus on 3 points. The first one being that India will move towards stable governments. Now you see, if India is looking and aspiring to become a superpower as well as a $20 trillion economy before 2030, it is very important that India needs to have stable government. The second point is with respect to the reduction in the cost of conducting an election, because ultimately it's the precious taxpayers' money which is getting utilized in the conduct of the elections, and any penny saved is ultimately contributing towards the GDP of our country, in which basically government will be able to have a surplus of funds which will be available for public expenditure. The third point relates to the very fact that there is a general perception in our country that a politician, he is thinking of his own survival first, then he thinks of the nation. So the point is that this situation arises because of the simultaneous elections that are taking place in one state or another all the time, all the while, every year. So there is a lack of cohesive movement between the center and state so far as issues of national interest are concerned. We have already seen when it led to a natural calamity and a kind of a human issue in the form of COVID, how basically the policies between the center and state, they were not reconciling with each other, and ultimately it took more time in ensuring that how we can get away from that situation. So my point is that this measure will help in such a way that the center and state, they will be working as a cohesive force, which will help in not only handling and taking care of the national issues, but ultimately it will help in the nation's development.
Absolutely. And Ashwini, let's also try and figure out the brass tacks and look at how the constitution is going to be amended if this is going to kick in as law of the land, and how complicated will this exercise be, and is it going to be possible, Ashwini, to keep all parties happy?
Vinit bhai, to some extent, bringing a consensus will be a difficult task, because you see the DMK or the Tamil Nadu has its own agenda, its own way of dealing with people and how they come in the power, because they have the different parameters. And if you see the Andhra Pradesh, then also see the Odisha Biju Janata Dal, they have. But so far as the 50% consensus of the state is required to bring this into the logical process, that is the 50% states, I think that the BJP, it's their election manifesto, they would be able to do. But the consensus, why it is required? Because India is a democracy, and being a democratic country, it has to look for the valuable suggestions of those who are the stakeholders, and regional parties are the equal stakeholders. Samajwadi Party had been ruling the Uttar Pradesh, Bahujan Samaj Party had been ruling the Uttar Pradesh, Biju Janata Dal rules there, Shiv Sena is there in the Maharashtra. So and in Sikkim we have different parameters, different challenges, different manifestos, but 50% is what the legally and constitutionally required in order to have the one nation one election. That 50% is required. But and the certain amendments, why I am saying that in municipality election, the agenda is not the national interest. In municipality election, Nali, municipality election, the water, municipality election, the other poll promises are there. And if we see the state assembly election, then in state assembly election, it is not the nation, but the state benefits are kept paramount, which are being promised by the political party. And in national level, if we see, that's the country's growth, like what under the Prime Minister Modi, the many initiatives were taken in order to give country in a global image. The Vishwaguru, which they are working and they are talking about. Yes, the consensus is required, but by 50% bringing, they can start it. And that is why this panel has suggested just after the Lok Sabha elections are over, they will implement it. Meaning thereby, some of the using Article 356 in a positive way. Let us do not talk that 356 is being used in a negative way, bringing emergency. Let's say there's a positive way. Some of the states are due for elections. Some of the states just have the election, and by bringing that, they can fix that criteria. And by this, the expert committee has already suggested they can bring it. And I think that it will be a feasible exercise which will ultimately benefit the country and will benefit the country's growth.
Right. Yugender, what all, further economic avenues you feel that one nation, one poll, can render to, a democratic and an election machinery which has worked astutely, reliably. Our election and the way we conduct them are looked upon and appreciated all over the world. You think that appreciation is obviously going to get deeper, with this particular reform?
See, Vineet, I think India is known for having free and fair elections all the time, and for which the credit needs to go to the Election Commission of India. India has a very independent judiciary. This is also a very well-known fact. So I think so far as the concerns of the regional parties or otherwise other states which are non-BJP ruled are concerned that the center might become more powerful or they might misuse their powers to, bring down the other governments. I think we need to understand that we have a very strong independent judiciary which is there to handle the situation. At the same time, I feel the role of Election Commission of India will be very, very important going forward, because it is they who will have to ensure that the implementation will need to take place at a very smooth and in a manner that is very transparent, because that will be the key in which India will be seen that it is able to manage the affairs.
Ashwini, how do you respond to this question in terms of India's electoral prowess? The machinery is running absolutely fine. It's a well-oiled machinery. Is this going to be basically reforming it for the better, or do you think there are going to be some chinks in the armor when it's implemented, and that too will take a relevant amount of time to be ironed out?
There will be challenges, no doubt, Vineet Bhai. This will not be a immediate easy task which we are seeing, because overshadowing the regional interest will not be an easy task. And that too, when there are, you see, in every policy decisions taken by the central government or Union of India is being criticized, and the public is coming on roads by the political parties or their followers are coming. But yes, this one nation, one election policy slowly can be implemented, because India is a diverse country. And if we see, we start from one part, Kanyakumari, and we reach Kashmir, in every 10 kilometers, we see that the language is changed. So, and that is why it is called the democratic, constitutional and structural country, and where certain alterations keeping in view their interest is required for enacting it. So this process has been initiated. They have already worked over, and one of the expert committee has worked over it. But ultimately, if we see the BP Jivan Reddy committee's report, they have said that the simultaneous elections are not feasible within the existing framework of the constitution. Constitution you can amend, but how you can bring those on one platform, those states which states have their own agenda, those states which have their own poll promises, those who have their own ideology and followers, who are not, because if you see, they are not able to learn Hindi, they don't speak Hindi. Moment you bring the national education policy, there is a opposition to the national education policy, which is ultimately one nation, one education policy is also required. When you bring the one nation, one tax, there is a problem. Then how this election process or the one nation, one election, if you're going to implement in those states, it will be easily implemented, I think. But yes, to some extent, we have a visionary prime minister, and the committee has recommended it, and it will be implemented, which is in the larger interest. Yes, Vineet Bhai.
All right. Appreciate both of you joining us. We have run out of time. And even in a poll which was conducted online, 81% of the people felt that one nation, one poll was a brilliant idea and should be implemented.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.